Welcome back to another Love Discussion. I, of course, am Jahawe Jarvis, here with Let Our Voices Echo. I'm here with Mr. Kevin McCauley. He's actually a music teacher up here from Rockland County, New York, spending a little bit of time with us during this holiday season. And I'll let him tell you a little bit more about himself.
Yeah, so I became a music teacher because I love music. I've been playing music my whole life. But more so, I've always wanted to help a little bit more than that. And I really just want to help kids be with the world, you know? And through music, it becomes a lot easier to do that, in my opinion. And you're saying about how can we help the world become a better place? And honestly, listening to kids. Just listen to what they say and don't shun them so quickly. Let them speak their mind, you know? I'm not saying, no discipline, let them run, but, just listen to what they're saying.
Absolutely.
When they do something wrong, listen to why did they do that thing wrong, and then we can learn from that, and we can learn a lot about ourselves through them.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that comes from the kind of unbiased nature of children. You're getting them at such a fresh state of being. They haven't really had the time to develop all of these crazy notions and biases and stigmas and everything that we've kind of already touched on in these discussions that adults have towards other adults or, the society that they live in or whatever have you, the opinions. Children really are pretty much cut and dry. They say what they mean and they mean what they say. It is important to listen because at the end of the day, that's another voice. I talk about, people who are not really well advocated for. Children, obviously, they're children. And though we have different lanes to advocate for children, I feel like the children's voice is often unheard. And that's because they are, in fact, children. We kind of discredit what a child can be capable of conveying. We discredit what a child is even capable of doing because, age matters and time on earth matters more. And you know what I mean? Like, it might not sound the most professional, it might not sound collegiate, but if you listen close enough, they're getting across what they mean. And, again, with going forward in the future and worrying about future generations, it's like we almost have to listen to children because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones who take over after we're gone, you know what I mean? I'm talking like I'm on my way out, obviously not, but like, you know what I mean?
Gotta
Like,
wait.
I still have
Gotta
some
wait.
time. People would still even consider me a child, but at the same time, I see what's going on. There's so much disconnect right now with just myself, and I'm only 26 years old, and it's like, I don't even understand children really. You know what I mean? Like, me personally, I've been working with children in music as well. Like, I started doing drum tech stuff and instructing drumline, whatnot, and getting back to my roots. And just being around children again, being around that age of people, it's like, oh, wow, I remember this. But, like, not really because these kids are completely different. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily where I'm teaching at. It's just children in general that, it's just different. And what interests children is different. So, like, we as people, the older generation, we have to kind of shape ourselves and readjust ourselves to better benefit the children in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting how fast culture moves. Like, kids that, aren't too far away from us are in totally different things.
Don't even understand what we grew up with. Like, I bring it back to, like, when we were in school. I mean, you're a couple of years older than me, so, like, when I was graduating, we had just started getting, like, iPhones. Like, that was more popular at that point. Like, before it was, like, way too expensive to get them, so, like, you just got the phone that you got with your plan. You had minutes. Unlimited stuff was not that I'm putting you on, children. Unlimited wasn't a thing. You couldn't talk on the phone before 9 p.m. Social media was very premature.
Just getting started.
Just getting started. Like, Facebook was for older people. Sorry, guys. I grew up in the times of MySpace, and Vine was very brief, but like that was cool. Now it's TikTok. But like even just mentioning certain things that we used to do and the things that we used to, that's not that far off. That's only like within the last 10 years. But even just in the past 10 years, things have changed so much. People care about things so differently, I guess. Like what's important to people now is more so the image online as opposed to what you're doing in real life. And it's crazy because for me, I don't think that that makes sense. for me, I'm like, oh, why do you care so much about that? But then for somebody coming from that area, coming from that generation, it's like, why wouldn't you be doing this? You know what I mean? So that's me trying to readjust, but it's hard.
Right. And I'm thinking my goal as a music teacher, especially more recently, is how do I adjust music to adapt to the fast changing times? Like,
Absolutely.
things change so fast, but when you go into a school band room, what do you see? The rows of flutes and clarinets, the saxophones, the trumpets, the percussion, all playing very standard repertoire that's been played for since the
Hundreds
beginning
of
of,
years.
it's all the same. And I'm trying to mix things up. Like, why can't you have a guitar and a vocalist come into your band room
Absolutely.
and jam out? Like,
And that's
It's
awesome.
still music, you know?
And it's fresh, like you were saying. It's a breath of fresh air, because now kids know what they're getting into when they sign up for band and stuff like that. You're gonna play the traditional stuff. You're gonna learn what instruments you play. But at the same time, I mean, knowing myself, I didn't like everything that we played.
And like,
So-
how often were you able to express your voice in music class?
Exactly.
You were playing all the other guys' music that they wrote for you.
And they wrote for me, and it's like parts were given out, because obviously I'm a percussionist, so we don't all play the same thing, and you're gonna play this thing. And I remember one time, I mean, not for nothing, you get to learn by experiencing different things, but me being who I am and thinking very highly of myself, I never thought that I should be sitting there playing the triangle an entire song. You know what I mean? So it's like certain things like that, but like it was a necessary part of the song. So like I get it now. I was being a team player and doing what I had to do. I always thought I'm supposed to be on the snare drum. You know what I mean? Like in concert band, I have to be on the snare drum.
Right.
I'm the best. But like thinking back on it, it's like, okay, I was playing my part. I was playing an important role that I didn't think was very important, but that's another experience, another asset to take as a child later on in life. You might not see it like that in the moment. You might just say, like I did, oh wow, why are they putting me on this instrument? Don't they think that I'm a little better than this? But like at the same time, no, I'm teaching you a life lesson. Like you have to kind of suck up your pride and do this for the team rather than for yourself. And you know, with what you said, you're doing that in a different way by doing it a little more youthfully.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that the standard band is incorrect in any way.
Absolutely,
It's just, you know,
absolutely.
there's
It's
a
just
time,
different.
you know,
Yeah.
do other things besides just that.
Well,
Yeah.
I think, and that leads us into another point, because I think with where we're at as a society, there's a lot of people kind of experimenting. Like there's just, it's the time for it. It's time to kind of break the mold and try something different, because we've been doing the same thing for so long. So it's a perfect time to come in here, try to shake it up a little bit. It's not saying that you're doing anything wrong, and it's not saying people before you did anything wrong, but it's like kind of the message that I'm trying to do with Love. Obviously, there have been other entities like the community that Love is trying to present, but we're just trying to do it a little differently by being wholeheartedly loving in every way that we can possibly
And from
be.
your perspective, it's your voice. you know, it's-
Exactly. So yeah, all right, it might have been done before, but like you said, let's shake it up a little bit. Let's do it a little bit differently, and maybe we'll reach people differently at the same time.
And keep bringing it back to music, but you know, that's what I do.
Right.
Music, same way. There's 100 cello players. They all play the same song, but they're all going to have a different aspect because they all have different things that have happened to them.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing that I really appreciate about working with students is it really opened my eyes. There's so many different situations besides my own. When you see it in the kids, like, wow, that's some tough stuff.
Exactly.
You know, and it really puts into perspective when
100%.
I go home to my, you know, central air apartment.
Exactly.
it's
Just that. That's something that gets taken for granted until you meet a kid who may be a little less fortunate or in a different circumstance. You know what I mean? It opens your eyes a little bit. That's with anything, but you have to expose yourself to those things.
Right.
And you know, dealing with children, they're not gonna. I find that with adults, especially, there's a lot of pity that gets thrown around because adults kind of make their bed and they don't want to lie in it. So now it's like, I want people to feel bad for me. Whereas children, they're put in a circumstance not because of what they did, it's just what they have to deal with. So they don't know, you know, necessarily that they might be not as well off as the next. You know, that's the genuine, or what? How do you say that? Genuinity. That's that's the genuine nature of children, where that like you know, you're not necessarily conscious to everything around you. You're not conscious to your circumstance. I might see you as your teacher, you know what I mean? You might see them as the teacher. Well, you know, they're coming in here and it's obvious that they may be tired, or maybe it's clear that they may not have eaten or something a little bit. And it's like, just that, like, you would have never expected that. I mean, we came from Rotterdam, New York, you know what I mean? Like, not for nothing, there were circumstances like that, but for the most part, it really wasn't a lot of that going on, you know what I mean? So it's like, to go out in the world and see it, it not only broadens your horizon, but it just creates a perspective to where now that as you go forward in the world, how you go forward is a little different, because now you've brought in all these different experiences that are not of your own. It's from the children, it's from the peers, it's from, elder, whoever it is. You're creating Kevin, you're creating Jahad. We hopefully will be creating the next child so that they can get all of these experiences, maybe even from us, and use that to, their advantage in the future.
It's the term, the evolution of consciousness. It's the kings are constantly feeding into each other and improving over time. It's progression's like inevitable. Absolutely. It can't not happen.
Absolutely.
Just because of what you just explained. We're all taking into different things, and and then it enhances our lives. Like, I'm a musician, I make songs with all that influence, and then someone else influenced off that, and so on.
Absolutely. That's really the important part here, because this is my fear with the future, because there are a lot of things that are influencing the youth and children, and not every one of them is positive. Not every one of them is even really worthwhile, in my opinion. And what that's doing, I mean, like I said, children are coming from a place that they're pretty much a clean slate. And whatever you put on that clean slate eventually takes up space. And now the less space that's there, the less space that you have to mold and create something positive or something that's going to be progressive. And, I just kind of pay attention to the internet. I kind of alluded to it in the last discussion. And with the internet, there's so many ways that you can go. Like, I grew up with the beginnings of YouTube, and it was kind of crazy. And the things that you saw back then before the ads were nuts. But like, at the same time, do I think that made me a bad person? Absolutely not. I saw some crazy stuff, but like, it is what it is. It's funny memories at this point. But like, now I think because it's so in your face all the time, you have kids falling asleep with tablets in their faces, and you have, honestly, with tablets in their face all the time, you know what I mean? And that's something I could have never thought that would be a possibility or the future when I was a child, you know what I mean? Right. Tablets were like not a commodity at that point. It was a luxury, so.
Yeah, and I'm curious about that as well, but I'm not sure it'll be negative or positive. I still honestly am unsure, because it seems like at this point, technology is a reality. Like, we all have phones in our pockets right now. It's checking every 2 seconds. It's like, that's part of our lives, but I feel like we have to see where it goes within the next 10 years. And I'm thinking, like, me and you have pretty stable foundations growing up. So that stuff didn't really, it kind of bounced off us a little bit more.
Exactly.
Whereas like some of these kids that have no guidance, they just go on and plug into a screen. Like, how are they going to be affected?
And that's the tough part now, because it's like, okay, we think of the traditional, like, I mean, I didn't come from a traditional household, but we could even say, like, I came from a traditional parenting structure, where my parent was at least 20 years older than me, you know what I mean? And just with that being said, the generation that she came from, my mother, was completely different than what I came from. Now you're seeing a lot more where the generation that these kids are coming up in is the same exact generation that their parents came up in, because it's just that it's so close in proximity. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but in turn, you're saying the guidance and things like that, if it's normal for the adult or the parent in that situation, then it's only going to be normal for the child. So like, yeah, it's hard to judge whether it's going to be positive or negative, because we just don't know. We've never been here
we're
before.
in the middle of it the first time it's really been happening.
Exactly. So it's not as simple as, when the newspaper and the printing press came about. You know what I mean? That opened a new line of like entertainment, but it didn't completely encapsulate you. It didn't engulf you in its I guess it's in its reach. But with something like the internet and tablets, it's so vast. You can literally be who you want to be. You can figure out anything that you want to. I remember like a long time ago, my mother was talking about like encyclopedias and stuff, and how she had to go to the library and look at encyclopedias to get her information and stuff like that. And I was like, what? Like, that's, whoa. Like, we just have like Ask Jeeves. Yeah, right. Like, you know what I mean? But like, even that, like, going back to just how like search engines have become so major now. Like Google didn't have all the answers before, but Google has all the answers
Yeah.
now. You know what I mean? There were certain things that you kind of had to question a long time ago when we're looking at the internet. But now, I mean, it's hard to decipher what's real and what's not. But at the same time, for the most part, you're getting a lot of valid information from the internet in milliseconds, and that is scary to me. But I think that's me being like an old head kind of, and it's
Right.
like I don't know about all that.
You know,
Like
that's kind of that's our job as teachers. I think everyone is a teacher. The school, like they may have the most relevant research, most up to date research, but the community also teaches the youth, and we have to teach them how do you navigate.
right. Right.
An
But,
iPad,
see,
you
that's
know?
tough though.
Yeah, it is, because
it's
we don't
like-
even really know.
I don't really know.
Yeah,
It's like you
it'd be
think of
like-
the scenario with like a grandparent and you give them a smartphone. It's like, well, how do I do it? You know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
like, okay, now I'm learning and I'm trying to teach you how to learn this, but I don't know all the capabilities. You might know better than me.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's like there's that weird.
I guess applying like our more mature judgment
Yes.
to their situation.
Absolutely. It's like the wisdom. You know what I mean? So like, and I think
Intuition.
that's naturally the role that the older generation or people in a position of authority, as like, I wouldn't say authority, but like of influence, like a teacher or something like that. That's your role, to be kind of the voice of reason, the voice of wisdom, to offer a child some kind of guidance. Because at the end of the day, children are going to listen to you. That's it. They're going to look up to you. That's natural. And they're going to listen. So what you do with that power, I mean, really is up to you. And that's what makes me fearful. Now with the internet, you get to see the crazier sides of the world, and you get to see it more broadcasted. And that is my fear, because it's like just as easy as I could sit here and watch the love page, I can go and find the hate page. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yes, but like it's like that. It's tough, because like that's not wrong. Like the kid used the internet and used their resource, but like to what extent is it okay? And I
Right.
don't think we really have any control at this
And
point.
I think when we were growing up with the internet, when it first, his like E-bombs world,
Yeah.
stuff like that,
See,
like
that's what
totally
I wasn't
uncapped,
gonna talk
like, yeah,
about
right.
it,
Like, we don't have to talk about it, but you know if you know.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, right. Like we grew up on that, and no one really bothered me because no one knew what it was.
Right,
Like
exactly.
It's a website, cool,
Exactly,
a website. But
exactly.
now we're already becoming more aware,
Right.
and we can show kids the capabilities of internet, like how easy it is.
To fall into some
Or you
stuff.
can just take out your phone and you can just become an influencer. You can have a positive effect on the whole world.
Right,
with
right.
a cell phone.
Right. It's like learning, I guess it's with anything. It's like you look at musicians and you look at, I guess like motivational speakers, and you look at people who just have a platform. Athletes, it doesn't matter. If you're being looked at all the time, it's like, okay, we look at 10, 15, 20 years ago. The people that we were listening to were the people on the news, the people on television, the people who had a microphone in front of their face. Now you don't necessarily need the microphone in front of your face. All you need is a decent camera on your phone, and you can put something out and people will watch it, no matter if it's 1 or a billion. You know what I mean? And I think that I give credit to TikTok for doing, because I hate TikTok, I'll be honest, but like I will give credit where credit's due, because it allows people to use a platform that they wouldn't have had prior to kind of do something positive. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff out there. My TikTok looks crazy. It is not the most positive feed of stuff, but with anything, I mean, that's kind of the point. Like you can look at whatever you'd like on the internet, and with TikTok, you're allowing yourself to have a platform in front of millions and billions of, I don't know what the reach is, but like a lot of people are watching your stuff just because, you know what I mean? And what that ends up doing is allowing people to become influencers. But again, there's always a flip side to it, because now you have children who are like, I don't know, like 10 years old becoming an influencer, who have really their feet aren't even wet yet, you know what I
Right.
mean? And like, they're given such power in the world. I was watching something the other day, and it was a very, I guess, prominent TikToker. I think her name's Charlie or something like that. And she had gotten 95 million followers, which I think is absurd. But like, I don't even know what that means. But like, she had 95 million followers, and she was in an interview, and she was like, oh, but I really wish I had like made it to 100. And like, she got a lot of backlash for it, ended up crying on the internet, apologizing to all these people. And I'm like, but why does it matter? Like, yeah, you wanted 100 million people. Why do you feel bad about, but it's like, she genuinely was hurt that the 95 million people, and I guess I don't understand it because I don't have 95 million people commenting on my stuff. Not yet.
Yeah.
But it's like, to be so emotionally attached to something that's on a screen, it's like that is scary because like now you're becoming a person that you can only really function if the people through the screen really mess with you.
And it's becoming, you know, it can be a dangerous place, you know, because like
it's like a slippery slope.
One hacker and your information's to the whole world.
And your whole life is ruined. Now, like I mean, this is going.
If you're hiding stuff.
Yeah, if you're, but like it could be as
right,
simple as this.
You know.
Like you have, I guess, like the amount of followers equates to the amount of money you make. So like if someone hacks your account, steals your account, you've lost your entire income. People are literally quitting their jobs and doing the social media thing 100%, which is cool. It's just a realm of life that I don't 100% understand yet, because it's like me growing up, social media was not a way out. Like, like I'm starting to come to terms with not everybody needs to go to college, you know what I mean? But like, that's because of the conditioning that I had that I'm trying to break. And the same thing with social media. It's like, it's working for people. People are making a living from this thing. But for me, it's hard to see that, especially for myself, because it's like, nah, I don't know, man. Like, what if like next week no one likes me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, now what? Now what do I do? And I'm just sitting here and I'm homeless. You know what I mean? Like, there's all those weird risks involved. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's inevitable. It's gonna happen.
And I think we have to, if you treat it as a tool, it will provide. I think it will only help you. But like what you're saying, if you put all your stakes into TikTok, then, although like there's I don't even know his name. I don't really not too hip with it. But the guy who was longboarding the Fleetwood Mac with the train.
Dogface. Yo,
like
Dogface.
His life turned around overnight.
It's overnight. It's just off of something so silly too. Like I drink
they just
juice
really, you know,
on
he was loving it.
Exactly. He's being himself.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's, I guess, the genuine nature of the internet, because like you will promote something like that, and that almost makes you feel good because you're not seeing the fake stuff on the internet. You're just seeing a guy drinking some cranberry juice on his longboard, singing. Like, that's honestly awesome, and it's like something so simple. But like now this guy's, I mean, I follow him, and I think he's like gotten like quite a bit of money.
He met Snoop Dogg.
He met Snoop Dogg. He's gotten quite a bit of money. I know he's working at some deli, and like he's got a bunch of like promotions and, you know, sponsorships now, which is awesome.
A sponsored deli worker. See, we're at that state now.
Exactly.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And it's like now this man can make a living for himself. We don't know his circumstances prior, and it's cool. I don't need to know his circumstances. But the internet community came together to help this man, and that's the cool part about the internet, because it's so immediate. But you know, you have to, again, we have to use it as a tool, a positive tool. We have to, it's with anything. It's like with fire. Fire was one of the first things that we could utilize and really manipulate to do things for us. You know, it could go really
your
bad.
Whole entire home.
Exactly.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. Absolutely. So like, it's like,
it is very dangerous.
It's dangerous within reason. Yeah, exactly. If you don't know how to control, I'm acting like I'm holding fire in my hand.
I'm like, holding internet.
Fire. Yeah. But like, you know what I mean? But it's like, another tool we have. I think that's what being a human being is. I think because we're so complex, we as people just fall into new tools, and it's how we're going to use them that's going to pretty much determine our future. You know what I mean? It started with the fire, and now we have smartphones.
I have to say, there's a lesson my father taught me growing up. When I got into guitar, and I was always into like gear, like, oh, I gotta get the next pedal, the next amp. He's like, you know, if you learn to really play the thing and then go back, and then mess with the tones, don't depend on the distortion and the reverb.
That will make you a good player.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that kind of applies to everything. And like the internet, like don't just use it as a crutch.
Right.
Have something.
Know what you're
out
using
there
it
first,
for. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then use it as a tool to prop you up and spread your influence.
Understand that. I mean, that's just where we're trying to go. As me with the love community, that's you as a teacher. We're just trying to learn and grow. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, Kevin, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you coming on.
Of course.
And we're gonna do it again. Go check him out at his school. I'm just playing. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. And it's a wrap.